This is where we should be going with Web3 gaming. We just need to scale that to like 100x or 1000x, right? And then we're gonna be there. This is where we want to go with Wombat.
I'm Robert Trusardi, and the following is a conversation with Adrian Krion, the founder of Spielworks and the Wombat wallet. Wombat is one of the most popular crypto wallets, especially amongst video gamers. He's also the creator of the Wombat Dungeon Master game and Dungeon Worlds. We talk about Web3 gaming, the impact of bots, and building the increasing value of their Wombat products. Thank you for joining me, Adrian. I appreciate you being here. So we've kind of been working together in a way, mostly through some business partners, and occasionally I've been talking to some of the people in your company about collaborations with castles, and we appreciate your guys' partnership with us. You guys have provided us with a lot of value, promoting castles and working with the integrations that you guys have for your Wombat wallet. So let's talk about Wombat. Let's talk about the Wombat wallet, how you guys got here, kind of just like break the ice. People who are watching who don't know what Wombat is, it is a multi-chain wallet. Specifically, it looks like you guys are have a focus on NFT games or Web3 games. So that might be mobile games, it might be games on the PC. And so why don't you put in your own words kind of like what the Wombat wallet is and what you guys do there?
Cool. Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me, and great to meet you, Robert. Yes, we kind of have been working together, but so I'll give you the long story because we got a little bit of time. I realized I've always been a gamer, right? I grew up in the 80s. No, I was born in the 80s. I actually grew up in the 90s, right? So in the early 90s, I learned programming on the 286 computer that my parents had. My mom was doing a programming course, so I kind of started reading from her books and then learning programming and Turbo Pascal, and all I wanted to do is make games. Right? My brother had a Game Boy. We had this 286 computer. We were playing like California games and all these Pac-Man and these cool games. Friends had C64s and this kind of stuff, right? So I was like totally consumed with games, like playing day and night, like many kids, obviously in the 90s, right? And I always wanted to make games. So I actually went on to study computer science and mathematics, so I could actually like professionally go into gaming, but somehow I lost kind of my determination there. It felt like it's way too risky. I didn't know where to go. There weren't that many studios in Germany that were making like exciting games back in the like early 2000s, right? So I was a bit puzzled. So instead of like directly going into gaming, I realized, okay, let's try some other things, right? So I started an internship, and this happened to be in finance. So I worked with Deutsche Börse, the German stock exchange operator, and I ended up working with them for 7.5 years, which was kind of crazy, and I never kind of intended that, but it was fascinating enough to like build trading systems and market models and go through all that stuff, right? But then around 2013, I kind of wanted to leave, and was around the same time that I actually discovered Bitcoin. I actually had discovered Bitcoin in around 2011, but early 2013, I bought it for the first time, right? So Bitcoin was about $90. That's pretty much my 10th anniversary around today or whatever. And yeah, so that kind of drove me all into Bitcoin and blockchain, and I wanted to learn more about it. So I actually quit my job at Deutsche Börse, and I was about to start a software services company back then, like an IT consulting / software service company. So we started that, and then Mt. Gox happened, and it was like everything was crazy, and we obviously had a lot to do. But then in 2016, I thought, okay, Ethereum seems to be a real thing, right? And it's not going to go away. And this whole, hey, you can execute code on the blockchain, that might actually be very interesting. So let's just like start digging into that and start offering services on top of Ethereum, right? And that brought us into the ICO space in 2017. We've had hundreds of questions and requests from like not even companies, like teams who wanted to do an ICO, right? In this craze, and so that was basically getting more and more. So I said, okay, I need to kind of start a dedicated company dedicated to blockchain. So that was early 2018 when I co-founded Spielworks, and it wasn't called Spielworks back then. It was a consulting company, and we first wanted to find out what the main drivers for blockchain mass adoption would be, right? So that's why we wanted to do consulting and see a lot of different business models and how they would actually adopt and incorporate blockchain into their business models across kind of all fields. That was enterprise, that was gaming, there was adult, there was like all kinds of things that we saw, right? It was really amazing times, really interesting concepts. But a lot of that was gaming and esports and things, right? And that's it got us thinking like, okay, so why would gaming be kind of this nucleus for or this catalyst for blockchain mass adoption, right? And then obviously I got thinking, it got me thinking about my old kind of gaming days where I was playing this much, and I was like, oh, that would be so cool. And actually, gamers have this high affinity towards virtual assets, and it would be so cool if you could like recoup some of your investments, time and money wise, and so on. So this was really like that really got us started, and then we started digging into okay, so what will be the biggest issues to overcome for gamers in Web3, right? And so this got us started with Wombat because then we thought, okay, back in 2018, there weren't that many alternatives for how you could actually use blockchain in a gaming context, right? It was Ethereum with like CryptoKitties and these kinds of things, and then EOS came up back then, right? And was really fascinating because I didn't like EOS. I didn't really like the ICO that they did, right? It was like all a bit fishy, and turns out obviously it was. But the technology looked interesting, and then I played the first game. I think that was EOS Nights, which came out around September 2018, and I really loved the UX. Right, I was like, "Oh, cool! You've got pretty much instant transactions. It's super cheap transaction fees. If gaming wants to adopt blockchain within the next few years, then this is going to be it. Right, this is going to be the type of UX that you will want on chain." But it was super hard to onboard EOS. Right, you would have to create an EOS account. You would have to pay for it. Then you would have to buy RAM. You would have to stake EOS tokens for network and CPU. Was all so complicated. All the stuff that people are still dealing with in the WAX and EOS space, but it was even harder back then. So we wanted to build the easiest possible solution to onboard into the EOS space. So that's how we started Wombat, right? With the goal of basically building this platform where you could play all your games and manage all your assets. And this is how we started off with kind of the wallet part of the Wombat app, right? And originally it was just a wallet, right? That's all you could do. But we basically reduced the time to onboard into the EOS space to like 18 seconds from downloading the app to actually getting in and having your EOS account. Yeah, and so this is how we got started, and this is how Wombat started becoming popular back in actually 2019. We launched in June 2019.
Right, you guys have accomplished a lot in that span of time. I've downloaded the app on my phone. It was very easy. Just got it downloaded. I just made a Wax wallet, and then I was, inside of Wax, and I was able to browse, there, and I was able to claim the tokens that you guys have, or the, daily rewards that you guys have. And there's quite a lot of tokens on there. How many blockchains do you now have available on the Wombat wallet?
So originally, yeah, like I said, we started with EOS, then we integrated Telos early on. Wax came a little bit later, and then we also started digging into, I think that was in 2020, we started digging into Ethereum and EVM, right? So Ethereum was first, and then we added Polygon, BNB Chain, Avalanche, Phantom. And I mean, obviously, it's not hard from a technical perspective to add EVM chains, right? Because they're all the same. It's just that we don't want to be a MetaMask, right? We don't like want to just have you configure your RPC endpoints yourself, right, and your chain IDs. We want to offer a little bit of an ecosystem for all the chains that we support. So there should be a token swap that's simple to use, right? There should be maybe a fiat on ramp and off ramp, ideally, right? And these kinds of things. So we would like to integrate these things as well. And not just like give you the tool, but actually give you some kind of an experience. So in order to do that, obviously that requires more work. So we only do that. We only integrate new chains when there's a certain critical mass of adoption in the gaming space. So we're really gaming focused, right? Basically, it's just a small set of chains, so like these 8-9 chains that I mentioned. So we don't integrate like anything that comes up because it's usually not worth it, and we don't want to clutter everything with like hundreds of chains and millions of tokens, and then you would have USDC, for instance, on 20 different chains, or USDT on 30 different chains, and then you see all these balances, right? Because again, we're not MetaMask, we're not switching from one chain context to the other. We want to consolidate all the assets that you have. We would also like to consolidate all your NFTs that you have, right, in our context. So and that's much harder to do if you're on 40 chains than if you're just on a handful, right? There's already loading times. Like if I want to load all my NFTs, we obviously have to call like 5 different APIs, and it takes 20 seconds, 30 seconds to load everything, right? So these kinds of problems. So that's why, yeah, we're not focusing on integrating the most chains. We're focusing on having a great UX for each of the chains that we have.
And I think only the top chains really matter anyways, right? And having this curated experience, I think, is really important because when people want to be involved in like, games and crypto and, kind of like in your experience with your, wanting a video game career, you didn't know where to start. That's like with crypto right now. People don't know where to start. It's like, where do I start? But with Wombat, you can download Wombat, get started on a chain, and then you have this curated experience to help you figure out like what to play. And you guys actually have your own game in the Wombat wallet as well, or the Wombat game, so people can start to play that. So how did you guys get into the Wombat game itself?
That's all a history of things, right? There's always a chain of or train of thoughts that led to that involved. So with Wombat, we first had Wombat, right? And I, again, give you the long story because I think we got enough time. In 2020, early 2020, we acquired a ton of users, right? We've had about 350,000 users for the Wombat wallet in the first quarter of 2020. So 6-7 months into after having launched, and the problem was that no games were coming out, right? There was, to remember, early 2020 was deepest, darkest moment of the last crypto winter, right? That was shortly before COVID hit, and then COVID hit, and Bitcoin went down to like 4K. Nobody was investing in blockchain games. Any games that had been announced for 2020 basically got canceled or delayed or whatever. They were basically like 6, 7, maybe 8 playable games, like really like properly playable games across all chains available in the entire Web3 gaming space, right? So we had these users, and we basically attracted them by basically through gaming, right? We told them, oh, look, this is a great place where you can basically play games and earn crypto and stuff. But there were no games, so nobody could actually do anything. So we're getting more and more users on board, and they were just asking, so okay, this is all I can do. What am I going to be doing next, right? And then we tried a little bit with DeFi because there was DeFi summer, right? But obviously, gamers and DeFi, that's a bit of a stretch, right? If you want to teach them, we were successful in some ways, but if you want to teach them like TVL and impermanent loss and these kinds of things, right? That's obviously a bit hard. So instead of basically trying and spreading wider in terms of more blockchains or whatever, trying to pull in anything that there was, we started focusing on bringing gamers into the space using Web2 games, right? So we basically started integrating Web2 games and put a very thin layer of blockchain on top of these Web2 games. We called it OnePlay, right? And that was our kind of platform that we wanted to use to entertain our existing users with great experiences where they could earn first just crypto and then later also NFTs, but also use that as an on-ramp for traditional gamers to get into the Web3 space. And that actually allowed us to grow really fast, right? The first games that we onboarded were like first smaller titles. We're happy and lucky to get Forge of Empires was the first Web2 game that we got, so that's pretty popular in Europe. And then after a few months, we started getting like the really big titles from Lords Mobile to Raid Shadow Legends, right? And so we've had really AA, AAA mobile titles on the platform that people could play and earn crypto. And then we added NFTs on top of that in 2021. And obviously, that was just the right timing. 2021, everybody wanted NFTs, so we grew really, really quickly, right? So in 2021, we grew from say 600,000 at the beginning of 21 to 2 million users by the end of 21, right? Total like users on board into our space, and that obviously allowed us to like suddenly we had all like these this big user base, right? And then and all of these or many of these users had crypto, and a lot of them also had NFTs, right? And then we started thinking, okay, what are they going to do with all these NFTs, right? Because now they have all these NFTs that we handed out to them as a reward, as a pure collectible kind of. And now we wanted to teach them, like, what's the next step? What can you do with these NFTs? So this is how we came up with the idea of Wombat Dungeon Master. This is what the game is called, right? And like this was supposed to be the simplest possible gamified NFT staking experience, right? So we said, okay, how about every user can just come and stake their NFTs, up to 100 NFTs, and press a button once a day and get a reward at the end of we called them seasons, right? So we said, okay, there's a 6-week season, and you go and stake your NFTs, and depending on which NFTs you've staked and whether you actually came back every day and pressed the button, you will get a reward at the end of the season. And turns out 10,000 people played that or staked NFTs on the first day, or 8,000 people staked NFTs on the first day. And we're like, oh my goodness, people love that, right? Love that kind of gamification on top of NFTs. And this became widely popular. Now it's a top 10 game across all chains. If you look at the app radar and just filter for games, right? I think yesterday or today we were ninth. We're above Axie Infinity in terms of on-chain activity, in terms of on-chain DAUs, right? It's crazy how many people are playing this. Obviously, it's not the simple idea that it was in like a year ago, right? But it's still a very simple core principle, and there's a lot of things and a lot of strategizing that we built around that. And now we're building Dungeon Worlds, which is kind of a franchise type of extension on top of it, right? But we didn't really expect that to be as popular and people demanding kind of as many new features. So originally it was just 2 people working on it. Now it's a team of 6, right? So it's kind of crazy what happened with that. And yeah, it's also become kind of a product of its own, right? Originally we thought, okay, let's just gamify or further gamify NFTs, the NFTs that we've been giving out, right? And add layers and layers of gamification using NFTs on top of one another. And now it's kind of a real game, and yeah, we're really proud of the community that we've built there, and all the creators that we have, and all the players, and like how dedicated people are, and all the questions that we get, and all the requests, and all complaints, and we're really, really grateful for that.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Dungeon Worlds later. I'm really interested in this smart strategy that you guys had the beginning to release the wallet and know where you were starting, and then continuing to build out your strategy from there. I think that was really smart the way that you guys have been doing this. And the thing that I wasn't aware of was how you guys had started just with like promoting the Web 2 layer apps, the mobile apps. And that was kind of how you started to onboard a lot of users, into NFTs and Web3 using the Web2 games. And it sounds like you kind of hit an early sweet spot there in the market where you could capture people who played Web2 games or people who are interested in crypto, and kind of had a marriage between like an intersection where those 2 users could come in and start to coalesce, which is probably what it sounds like you're really interested in anyways, besides just creating a wallet, but creating a space where people could come and connect with Web3 and games. And it sounds like that's come together pretty well so far.
That's what it looks like, and that's also sometimes what it feels like. But then again, it also feels like we've been too early with so many things, right? Because obviously, there's having to ship around all these kinds of changes in the market and so on. You wouldn't have to have that. You wouldn't have to do that if you had just started 2 years later, right? With the same kind of idea, the same kind of team. Might have been easier with a little bit more hindsight. Obviously, we have this position that we're in. We have that now, but I can tell you there was a lot of hardship involved in learning all these things, changing course, adding stuff, going through two crypto winters in the meantime, right? Um, and trying to keep up, a good mood, bring out the ideas and so on. And some of this, truth be told, right, didn't come from, oh yeah, we know exactly what we're doing, right? Or it came more from, okay, let's try this and see how it works. And turns out pretty much all of these ideas where we had like, okay, let's see whether that works. If we can't go there, then let's try this, right? Turns out that these work really well, right? So both what we did with One Play and also what we did with Dungeon Master worked really well, but might have turned out totally differently, right? There's a lot of hard lessons on the way, and really a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of we have no idea whether that's going to work in between. So in hindsight, always right. If something works, it looks like a lot like okay, that was their strategy. But while you're in this, it sometimes feels like okay, why are we doing this again? So I'm just being really honest here. It's not always like okay, you could have known what would happen. Like 2021, the whole craze around NFTs and stuff. I kind of thought that this would happen, but I had no idea about the timing. Right, first, like the first time I went to NFT NYC was literally in like I think it was early March or end of February, or early March 2020, right? And there were 350 people at NFT NYC, and half of them were speakers. It was like this tiny little community, and only like the NFT OGs were there, right? So Splinterlands, OpenSea, like whatever, right? The year after, there were like 6,000 people at NFT NYC, and now in 2022 there were like 15,000 people at NFT NYC, right? It's all this like it's just this craziness now, right? But back then, nobody knew, right? Everybody was hoping for it to happen, and everybody was like, "Yeah, we're sure it's gonna happen," but nobody knew when. And then suddenly, like just a year after, it started like, going through the roof like this, and nobody could have known. Really, I don't believe anyone who predicted this, right? That they actually predicted this. This was just like obviously, if you guess if you ask 1,000 people for their guesses, then 2 people are going to be right, and then these you can call out these people for predicting whatever.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Very similar journey where I built this company and I was expecting it was going to take maybe 5 years for us to get where we are right now. And it took us more like, 2 years, 2.5 years to get there. Because now it's in the past and all that craziness. But, I was thinking by 2015, we'd kind of have the level of activity that we have right now. And it's, or that we had like last year. Now it's 2023. So in terms of the timeline, I expected where we're at right this moment would have been like another 3.5 years into the future. But here we are with all this craze and interest inside of Web3 and crypto and Web3 games. So it's kind of nice. And I also know what you mean when you're in the space you're trying to build a company and you have an idea of where you want it to go, but then it goes off a different path. We started with a certain idea for a token that we call a Scholarify token, and then we saw all of the activity around games, and we were like, it's actually better time for us just to make a game because we could actually make a game in like a year or less. And so we decided to do that. Whereas our other project would, we thought was going to take years to build. We think it'll probably take less now because we have all the knowledge that we have to make it. But we started out with one thing and then it turned into another thing. So what is your vision for Wombat Wallet? Like, what is it that you really want the Wombat Wallet to be and the Wombat product?
Yeah, it's funny because you corrected yourself, or you changed the phrasing from Wombat Wallet to the Wombat product, right? And it's exactly that. We don't want to be a wallet because we don't believe in standalone wallet products in the long term, right? Right now, that's what people use. That's what people have to use in order to integrate or interact with blockchains, applications on top of blockchains, obviously. Everyone's talking about wallets, and wallets are something very, very valuable and very crucial when it comes to the user experience overall. Nobody wants to use a wallet, right? Back in the old days when we were like really calling the product a wallet, we would always compare that to a remote control for a TV, right? It's not that you want to use a remote control. Nobody wants to use a remote control, right? People want to watch TV. and that's why they're using a remote control, right? So we were saying like, okay, if Wombat is a wallet, then you would always want to package the wallet up with the product that you really want to use, right? So you would basically acquire users through partners who actually run games, and then they need somebody to run a wallet for them, and this is how you would acquire users. That comes with a lot of kind of drawbacks. If you're a must-have product, not a want-to-have product, right, like a wallet, like a pure wallet, then obviously, like, you can be kicked out very, very easily by somebody who's a really, really big player, like, I don't know, Facebook, right? Or whoever, by just them integrating the wallet into one of their core products, like the Facebook app or whatever they had planned with Libra and stuff, right? You don't have a reason to exist anymore as a wallet, as a pure wallet application, right? And there's obviously, it's hard to build a good wallet. It's really, really hard. So anyone can do that, and more people, like, there's a lot of companies or a lot of people, players, whatever, who have much more reach and who can much more easily adopt blockchain and like offering this wallet functionality. So we started looking at the wallet as just part of the functionality that you gotta have if you want to offer a great experience in any particular vertical, right? So we started thinking about, okay, how will people be using wallets, right? So will you have? Do you believe that if in case you need to use your, I don't know, you have, let's say, the keys for your house, right? Those might be kind of an NFT, right? And you can use this NFT to unlock your door, right? So you would use some kind of wallet for this. Do you think that you would be using your key NFTs from the same wallet that you would use, I don't know, your payment system that's kind of the Web3 equivalent of a PayPal app, let's say, right? And you would also kind of play games and store your game NFTs and interact with those and trade NFTs on marketplaces, all from the same application. And I would say no, because this is not how people think, right? You don't want to have this one size fits all type of application, because that's not how applications generally work, right? There is not one application for everything. Maybe Elon Musk will actually make Twitter into this one size fits all application, but I don't believe that, right? I think that there's a reason why we've been having apps that have a certain scope, right? And then you have hundreds of thousands of apps on your phone or on your computer, right? So we're thinking about Wombat of being your gaming hub for Web3, right? And ideally not just for Web3, because gamers don't want to think about the difference between a Web2 and Web3 game. That's not the category in which they think. And eventually all games are going to be Web3 anyway. But we think that gamers want to play games, right? And they may want to have a distinction between what they can do in games and what they can get from games, and how they're, like, on our platform, how they're gamified, right? And on top of that, we want to foster interoperability that comes with blockchain integration, right? And now, again, the longer story is that most people, when they talk about NFT-based interoperability between games, they talk about, oh yeah, I can take my weapon, my AK-47 that I've had in my Web3 version of Fortnite, whatever, right, and move that into my Web3 version of CS:GO and shoot somebody there, right? But that type of interoperability is obviously not a blockchain problem, right? That's not an NFT problem. Only 10 or 20% of the problem that really comes from or that really needs to be solved in order to achieve this type of interoperability can be solved by NFTs and blockchain, right? All the rest is like commercial questions, semantic questions, optics, engine, technical issues, whatever, right? So we like talking about two other types of interoperability when it comes to NFTs and blockchain and Web3 and gaming. And the second, outside of this kind of technical integration, is a commercial and economic interoperability, right? You can essentially get an item from one game, you can flip it, and you can buy something else in another game, or you could swap them into one another, or whatever, like something like that, right? Something very simple can become much more complex, can have to do with staking, so stuff that we've spoken about in the context of Dungeon Master, can be all kinds of things, but it would have some kind of just pure economic effect, right? and not be kind of usage in terms of you can actually interact with it. Um, and that's obviously that's super obvious, right? It's like that so obvious that you don't even have to talk about it, but it's still complex, and we still haven't reached that yet, not fully at least, right? So that you can like really have a liquid market for this type of item or this type of asset, and then you have a liquid market on another game, and you can actually cash out stuff that you acquired in one game, and then you can get a head start in another. Anyway, so this is the economic layer of interoperability, but there's also a social one. And that's where we see the largest potential, and that we see is most underrated in the discussion about what does Web3 actually bring to games, right? And how we view that is that um, within individual games, gamers always want to show off, right? The main reason for gamers to actually play games is, if you look at studies, it's escapism. It's not actually just pure fun. It's escapism. They want to be in a different world. And if you live in a different world, if you have the possibility, the option to be in a different world, then I mean, you want to be a better version of yourself, right? Because that's the whole point. If you don't want to be a super miserable or the same version of yourself, you don't want to have a one-to-one copy of yourself in this virtual world that you choose to be inside, is like as an alternative to the real world, right? So you better be a better version of yourself. So that's kind of what you want to show off. You can be anything, so you better be, you most likely want to be a better version of yourself, right? And this is what like the whole industry has been building their revenue models on, right? Skins, better looking characters, like the whole free to play thing is basically driven by, okay, I want to look better, or I want to signal status in whatever way. I want to have more points in this MMO strategy game. I want to have this cooler looking character. I want to have this super rare skin that I can only get because I was at this esports event or whatever, right? These kinds of things. And then you show that off within the game by being number one on the leaderboard or by showing off your cool character or whatever. And now with NFTs and crypto, you can basically take that to a cross game level, right? Without actually doing anything. It's kind of built into any game's kind of economy, because all the assets that you see um, are visible in your on-chain activity in your on-chain account, right? So, and if you have a wallet, you can suddenly see, okay, Robert has been playing the Web3 version of FIFA, the Web3 version of Fortnite, the Web3 version of this and that, and he's got this and this and this and this, and he's that awesome, right? And not only do you know what they own, you also have provenance, right? You also know whether this item has been minted to the player by the game, or whether they bought it on the marketplace and at which price they bought it on the marketplace. You have all that, right? So it's actually the perfect place to signal status, to show off how cool you are, what kind of skills you had, how many hours, how many years maybe you've played certain games, how many seasons you've been involved in this, right? What your coolest characters are, what characters you used to play, right? And all these things, right? That's all possible with NFTs and crypto and basically Web3 in games. And this is the type of interoperability that is like super underrated, right? Nobody's talking about it. And we're super far away from it actually achieving anything like that. But this will be so cool if you can do that on a cross game level.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we are. Well, this is where we want to go with Wombat, right? That you can actually achieve this and have all kinds of types of gamification and yeah, social status signaling using NFTs and stuff.
So you want the Wombat product to be able to share with people the accomplishments and the assets held by a player cross game, and have that be a big draw, a big reason to come use the Wombat product is to share with people and say, hey, look at all the cool stuff that I've done or I own. So if you own like $1 million worth of assets, you're able to say, hey, I own $1 million worth of assets across all these games. I have all these really cool, unique items.
Yeah, I mean, look how crazy 2021 and also 22 were in terms of PFP NFTs, right? And people would literally go and say, okay, I own Bake, I don't know, 1,247, whatever, right? And sometimes they would even post their wallet address, whatever, right? So you could look up what their portfolio is on OpenSea and stuff. So that's pure showing off, right? It's pure ego. And I'm not saying this is bad. It's just like this is what happened, and this is what people want to a large extent, right? They got something, and it doesn't matter whether they got lucky or they knew or whatever, right? But they have it, right? They've got this Bored Ape, they've got this whatever, right? And it's crazy how people started showing that off. And some of these were like worth millions, literally, right? And it's super dangerous to show that off, right? Obviously, you might get mugged, like virtually, if you show off how much money you own, right? But people were still doing that, and why wouldn't you do that as a gamer? Specifically, I'm not talking about like necessarily myself as a gamer and like our generation of gamers, but the generations after us, they are much more used to well all the skin stuff. I never spent money on a skin, right? But if you look into these specifically MMO games, oh my god, people are spending so much money on skins, right? And they're not getting anything for it. It's just a cosmetic item, right? And if they stop playing the game, then it's worthless. They can't like do anything with it. But at least, yeah, if it's an NFT, you can still show off that this is what you got, and you got it from the game, or you can sell it, right? So that's a big advantage.
Yeah, so how do you guys get from where you are right now to this point where the Wombat product is now is more cross-game friendly, particularly in being able to share the assets that you have and having this vision of the status signaling? Like, how are you guys going to get from where you are right now to there?
It's going to take a lot of time. So I think the first step is we need to get better, much better at managing NFTs, particularly in a game context. And that's where something like OpenSea, for instance, is not at all built for a mass market gaming type of context, right? And most NFT marketplaces aren't, right? And it's kind of crazy how this has worked. So now MetaMask, for instance, they've added kind of back in a way, but they have added this portfolio view, right? Where you can see your NFTs, and it's kind of funny how that has worked, right? Because originally they weren't showing NFTs at all, and then they were showing NFTs as just like ERC20 tokens. So you basically had a balance, and it would say you got 3 CryptoKitties, right? Which is pretty useless if you, because they're non-fungible and you're displaying them as kind of a fungible asset. And then NFT marketplaces like OpenSea came up, and people started doing anything that had to do with NFTs through this marketplace front end, right? Even if it was just looking at your NFTs or browsing others and on looking at whatever, right? And putting them on the marketplace, transferring them, crazy that you would have to go to the OpenSea front end in order to transfer an NFT to a friend, right? But that's where we still are to a certain extent, right? And so in general, like if you want to be the place that makes or makes a big fuzz out of NFTs and like in general game assets, then you need to become really good. And we've had this gallery, and we're not really happy with it because it's slow and it takes a lot of time. But this was our attempt to basically find out what a good UX would be, specifically in a gaming context where you don't just own hundreds of NFTs, right? Okay, so I guess that the most hardcore users, maybe the top 5% of OpenSea users, maybe have a few hundred, maybe a few thousand NFTs. Fine, right? That's not a lot. If you look into a gaming context, how many things do you have in a game, in any given game, right? How many NFTs can you have in castles? How many NFTs can you have from Dungeon Master or whatever? One of our top players, we've been looking at this. He has like 120,000 NFTs already, and we're just at the beginning of this journey, right? So we need to be able to handle hundreds of thousands, if not millions of NFTs in a mass market gaming context, because in each game you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands of items in each individual game, right? And this needs to be much, much more handleable, and it's not. It's like there is no good solution for this right now, and I'm not like Wombat is not an exception, right? We're not good enough at that. This is going to be the place where we're going to start. And like in general, I think that anything that's gotten to do with handling NFTs is not great right now, right? It kind of is like the good old days when eBay was a thing, right? And you would have to go to eBay to find things, right? And there was no search. You would have to go through the categories and find, like, based on the categories, try and find the stuff that you wanted to find, or the search was not really working or stuff like that, right? And nobody actually wants to go, or hardly anybody wants to go browse an NFT marketplace to maybe hopefully find the thing that they're looking for, right? Specifically in a gaming context, this is not how people will typically be using their NFT marketplaces, right? Typically, what you want is you have an RPG, you have a weapon, and you're looking for an upgrade for this weapon, for your right hand weapon, right? And then you say, okay, for my character class, for my level, for my attributes, what's the next best upgrade for my right hand weapon that I can wear right now, or I will be able to wear when I level up once, right? And that costs at most $3.50. Right? This is the question that you want to get asked, that you want to ask, right? And that you want to get answered by a marketplace. So the way of doing this is not by going to OpenSea and like opening the collection and trying to find with filters and sorting and stuff, trying to find this kind of item, but it's basically by clicking a button so that it displays you the two or three cheapest offers and you just buy the cheapest one. This is what typically is going to happen, right? Maybe there's going to be some attributes like durability, whatever, assigned to this. So you might want to browse five more, but that's it. That's all the experience. So you will never, in these cases, you will actually never touch a marketplace front end, right? You will basically, the marketplace front end will be in the game. You will be buying NFTs directly from the game like this, obviously, hopefully, if Apple ever allows something like that in the App Store. But and selling NFTs will work the same way, right? You've got something. You maybe if you upgrade your right hand weapon, maybe you want to be asked, okay, do you actually want to put your old right hand weapon for sale, right? Or you may want to revisit it later, but then you go to your inventory later, and you might want to put it on sale just like that from there, right? And then maybe there's buy orders, like offers for this already, right? And then you would sell it to the best offer already, right? Without actually putting it for sale to the open market and wait for somebody to actually buy it from you, right? So these kinds of things, there's so much work in terms of UX, right? We have all the primitives, all the building blocks are there. We have all the protocols and all the like on-chain, the smart contracts, it's all there. But there's so much work involved in adding all these extra steps and all this UX on top, that this is going to take years, literally years, to get that into a shape where it's really seamless, it's cross game, cross chain. We need chain interoperability and so on. There's so many things, UX questions to be solved, that well, we got so much to do for the next years to come, if we want to make this a truly like mass market compatible gaming experience.
So you guys are working on the UX experience of merging all of these different things that gamers want to be able to do with their NFT game assets, and essentially making it a more coherent experience, because right now it's very, as you said, fragmented. If you want to buy things on a marketplace, you have to first go to a marketplace. OpenSea is a pretty awful experience right now for it, at least in my experience. I don't think it's really been updated well. Like maybe for the last like year or two, since OpenSea made millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, the UX experience is still crappy. It hasn't
Crazy.
really evolved much. I'm kind of surprised. Over on Wax we use Atomic Hub, and I think Atomic Hub is great to continue to improve it. It does like the minimum of what you need to do to figure out what kind of assets you want. The Atomic Marketplace on Wax, I think, does a great job of doing what we need it to do. Could it do things better? Like you said, kind of like intelligently, smartly do things. It sounds like you guys are thinking that there is a better user experience that you can offer people with the Wombat product, and that will be the draw.
Yeah, I'm not saying Atomic are doing a bad job, because they're doing the job for what they designed the product for, right? They designed the product for people who want to come and buy some NFTs and trade them, right? And that's great. And there's like one extra step in terms of what's going on Wax specifically, right? Because there's hyper competition in terms of NFT marketplace front ends there that have shared liquidity, which is some people may not know that, right? But it's crazy awesome how like that this exists, right? And Immutable X, they're doing something similar, right? They're pooling liquidity across all marketplaces on Immutable X, and this is what needs to happen. And it's crazy that it's not the case in on OpenSea or on Ethereum, for instance, that you don't have shared liquidity and some kind of an affiliate system through which you could split the fee between taker and maker marketplace and whatever, and maybe have something that goes to the protocol, something like that, right? So that's something that's incredibly powerful when it comes to NFT marketplaces, actually shared liquidity, because then you can have huge fragmentation across your front ends, and you're not actually competition because you're sourcing and providing the same type of liquidity. So everyone is feeding into the same ecosystem. Everyone's benefiting from this because, yes, there will be people who just want to buy NFTs without the context of the game itself, for instance, or NFTs that aren't game NFTs to begin with. But there's others who, and I mean, we've been discussing that from a dungeon master context as well. This is exactly what we're currently working on. And the hard part is not to call the APIs. The hard part is really to build a UX that's user friendly and that covers 95% of the cases, because for us specifically, we have certain metadata about these NFTs that's not on chain, right? Because it would have been hard to put it on chain and put it on the NFTs. So now that's off chain data, and obviously Atomic Hub doesn't know anything about it, about that data, right? So they can't display it to you. So as a buyer, how would you know that this item has this, let's say, gives you a 50% contribution bonus if you you would have to look at two different sources, right? So you have to look at the game front end, or some kind of a page that tells you what this item does, and then you have to go to the marketplace and find and buy it. And that's super bad user experience, obviously, because you always have to touch two different front ends, and we also need to direct people away from our own app into something else. And now Nifty has these embeds, right? And that's all good, but it still is a marketplace experience. It's not kind of the okay, I can just snatch it from here experience, right? Because that's what effectively you want. This is how you would use a marketplace in that context all the time. You would go and say, okay, I've decided I want this item. Now give me the cheapest versions of it, and sort by price, and I will get the cheapest, right? And you will always want that, and you'll see 300 offers for this, or sometimes you'll see 3,000 offers for this. Why do you want to see that there's 3,000 offers? Why do you want to see all 3,000 or the first 20 of these 3,000? You're not interested in the most expensive ones. You're just interested in the cheapest ones, right? So these kinds of things, and yeah, that's what I think is really great about the wax space, and it's very unfortunate that this is not being noticed from kind of the outside world too much, because there's literally a lot of genuinely innovative stuff going on in the wax space when it comes to NFTs and blending and source shared liquidity across all kinds of marketplaces and so on. So there, more people should be looking into that, because there's really this is cutting edge stuff that's going on, and a lot of other ecosystems will have to or should adopt the same kind of mechanisms that we see in the wax space, right? So, but anyway, coming back to your question, a large part of what we're going to be building is how you treat NFTs, and that's going to have to do with obviously also buying, selling, but also maybe lending, renting, borrowing against, locking in, staking, whatever it might be, right? Showcasing, maybe even tracking events on top of NFTs. Maybe you will want to have kind of a feed of what your friends have been doing with those NFTs, how they got them, right? And have kind of a little social network on top of that. Again, Atomic have introduced that friend system, right? Which I'm not sure how well that's working, but that's a great idea in general, right? If you really want to know what your friends are doing. So there's a lot of stuff that can be built on top of NFTs that's really, really cool and should be really easy, right? And like I said, it's all about the UX because the APIs are all there, the infrastructure is all there, but building great UX and iterating over this is very, very time consuming. And you also don't want to destroy your existing product. You don't want to like screw over your existing users, right? This is really hard, but you know that from your gaming experience as well.
The cool thing about Wombat, Dungeon Master, particular like the game, is that it's very easy to get into. It's very easy to play. Just created a new wallet, and I was able to go to the game, and even though resources, I'm able to start collecting some of the resources in the game. Like we have a free to play mode, but right now we're trying to figure out a problem is if we keep it all on chain, how do we make it so it doesn't give you an error if you have a fresh wallet with no resources and you want to play? And so we had a meeting about it today, but that problem is there. With Dungeon Master, you don't have that problem. And I'm guessing some of it's on the front end, but it makes it much easier for people to download the wallet, you jump into the dungeon master, start playing the game, collecting resources, and earning assets. So I think you guys have done a really great job there. So for people, say for a newcomer, what should people really be interested about when it comes to the dungeon master game, particularly just dungeon master?
So there's maybe like a few things that stand out there. So one is, yeah, it has a genuine free-to-play mode, and it's supposed to kind of get you into um, understanding what you need to do by actually just doing it, right? So you are supposed to stake NFTs, and then you'll find out how well these NFTs work, and then you'll be directed to the next step to get more NFTs if you need them. Or I'm not saying we're done and we have the perfect solution there. I'm just saying that from the base mechanism there, I think that's pretty cool. But also that we're trying to basically make everything an NFT, and we're kind of pushing the boundaries there. So, just to give you an example, when we introduced clans, we were thinking about, okay, how do we map clans, right? And we could obviously put clans off chain or on chain or do whatever with it, right? And have the logic in a database or a smart contract. But we actually decided to go for NFTs that actually clan membership is expressed through an NFT, right? So we came up with this idea of clan boxes. So in order to create a clan, you would have to get this box, and this box would contain one ownership NFT and 5 membership NFTs, right? So you would basically have to stake this ownership NFT. It's basically staked automatically. And then you have 5 membership NFTs that you can distribute to other people. They would have to stake these NFTs in order to be in the clan. And as soon as they unstake, they leave the clan. Obviously, that comes with a lot of downsides and drawbacks and stuff, but this is really something that we wanted to like try around with because it's very interesting to signal the belonging to a particular group by having this NFT, and also the fact that you could actually auction out membership to this clan, right? And by officially telling people, okay, anyone who holds this will have the right to get into the clan, right? And so that's pretty cool, right? Or our season passes, our NFTs as well, right? So you can buy a season pass, and then you stake this, and then you can access the functionality that the season pass gives you. We have duration pickers, right? So you have these different run durations in Dungeon Master. You can run for 5 minutes or an hour or 6 hours, and then people were asking, okay, how can we get an 8-hour run duration? And we're saying, okay, no, we actually want to annoy you a little bit, right? We want to, because if you go to bed, you would have to make a choice. Either you go for 24 hours, or you go for 6 hours, or you have to have to wake up early to make your next run, or you would have to kind of lose a little bit of outcome, right, of output. So then people were like really asking for an 8-hour run duration because most people want to sleep longer than 6 hours, right? So we made the 8-hour run durations, but we made these NFTs, right? So you have to own this NFT, and you have to stake it, and then you can use this 8-hour run duration, and these kinds of things. So I think that we're really cutting edge on that end as well. And I mean, we'll probably be getting there when we speak about Dungeon Worlds. But really, one thing that we didn't expect when we first created Dungeon Master was the whole creator thing, right? So because I said it earlier, our idea was to basically improve um, engagement, or basically improve the utility of our own NFTs, right? We wanted to give people something to do with their own NFTs, and with the NFTs that we created for them. And we had handed out over 1 million NFTs back by the time already. So we really wanted them to have something that they can do with them. But then we also decided that we would also include third-party NFT collections, right? And then we started off like, okay, let's add these collections on Wax, on EOS, and then we started getting into the process of how we actually decide to include this collection but not this, and how do we decide that this collection or these NFTs from this collection should have this mining power and should be this valuable, right? And we realized that just by adding a certain collection, floor prices would go up of this collection, or trading volume would go up, right? And this was not necessarily a situation that we wanted to be in, right? That we now decide which collection becomes much more valuable, and we would have to kind of really take care of not disclosing this information before it goes out publicly, so that we wouldn't go into some kind of insider trading issues, right? Because we could have bought some of these NFTs ourselves and then sell them on the market after actually announcing that these will become part of or stakeable in Dungeon Master. So these kinds of things, that's really fascinating. But that actually gave us a lot of insights into what actually happens if you add this kind of utility that's totally game based, right? That's got like nothing to do with the collection itself, but you add that to kind of a third party product like ours, right? And then certain things happen to those economies, and that's very fascinating. And people can watch that and basically experience it themselves. What happens if we nerf, we buff NFT mining powers for NFTs and stuff. So that's kind of probably the biggest three things that people can see coming in new, and that that they can't see really in a lot of other games.
I think it's funny you didn't mention the cash rewards, or I call them cash rewards, but they're really like token rewards. So people can earn these token rewards by playing your game, and I think that's a big draw. So I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention that one. But you can go into your game, you can claim rewards, and you guys give out essentially these token prizes, which are very close to like cash, what I call cash rewards. And do you guys see that being a big draw, or did you skip over it because it's like not a big deal?
Well, it depends on who you ask, right? So when we started, and then when we kind of had to take Dungeon Master more seriously, the idea was that we kind of build it in a way that's very, very sustainable, and it can last a really long time, also in terms of an economy, right? So instead of going and saying, okay, we introduce a token, and then you can basically pump that up, and whoever comes in first will have a big advantage, and then whatever will have this like super steep economy curve where everything gets hyped, and then within 3 months everything breaks down, which is what basically happened to all these play to earn games. Specifically on Wax, we've had a ton of examples with those, right? We didn't want to build anything like that, and that was the specific reason why we said, okay, we do a prize pool. Obviously, in the NFT and blockchain space, you gotta have some kind of incentive, right? And we because it started that simple, that you basically stake NFTs, and then depending on which NFTs you had staked and stuff, you would get a reward. This is how it all started, right? We said, okay, there's got to be a reward for that, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing this, right? And this evolved. Then it kept evolving, but we kept this reward, this total reward, at $25,000 a season, which is quite a lot of money, right? In a way. But then again, if you compare it to most other play to earn games, it's very little money, and there is very limited upside, right? So you can't suddenly get 10 million or a share of 10 million, right? What happened with X Infinity, for instance, at some point, right? So that's what's a bit tough. That there's a lot of expectation from the outside for people coming in who say, okay, why are the rewards so low? Or why can I only earn $25,000? But for us, that was really the point, that we make it dollar denominated, so that people would always know what they can expect for next season, right? It would be it would be
Mm-hmm.
$25,000. It's not 25,000 of our tokens, and then maybe one season they're worth 2 million, and next season they're worth half a million, and next season maybe they're just worth 10,000, right? So that's what we didn't want to do. And that's also why we made the deliberate choice of, for instance, the materials that you can get. They're not tokens, right? In other games, there would be tokens, and I'm not blaming anyone. That's totally cool, right? And it's just that we were thinking about that, but when we said, okay, as soon as we do that, we won't have under control where the economy goes, right? People will be able to freely exchange those. We won't be able to control that. Maybe the price is going to go up, maybe the price is going to go down, but we're going to have to fight these prices, right? And we're going to have to fight one way or another. Either the prices go too high, and then people will complain about that and will stop playing, or the prices go too low, and then people will stop playing as well. And either way, this will not be great for the economy. So we already had the problem with NFTs to kind of keep NFT prices in balance. So yeah, that's why I'm not making a big fuss out of this, right? We are paying rewards, but um, I like talking about kind of the game mechanics and how that works within the game, rather than, okay, how much money can you make with it? Because um, games by nature are not designed for most people to make money with them, right? So in traditional games, in Web2 games, there's pretty much 0% of the players who are making money with the game, maybe
Mm-hmm.
0.1%, right, by extension, right, by some kind of esports, or maybe by streaming or whatever. But for most people, all the games that they play are net negative. um, and so we shouldn't be expecting that every game will make every player a positive return, right? That's just not going to work, right? Because some people need to be putting in the money that other people are getting out. So that's why I don't really like emphasizing the rewards that you can get.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that you seem to have identified the different types of gamers who come to play and for what reasons. And you've still brilliantly structured out a system that works for them in general. We have plenty of players who come in and they're like, the only reason I'll play a Web3 game is to make money. They're like, why else would I be here? Like, why else would I own crypto, gaming NFTs unless I was going to earn money? And then it almost seems like a no-brainer. Like, is the only reason anybody should be here. And then we have plenty of other people who are like, no, actually, I'm here to play. I'm here for, or other people are here for status. We find a lot of people come into our chat are actually more geared towards the money, like they're here for profit, or we sometimes wonder maybe they're just the most vocal, the ones who are like trying to strategize how to get ROI. And so I've always found this really fascinating. And actually, what I love about the space is that we have people who come for different reasons. And I think it's really interesting that you personally seem to be focused on the utility of the games and the actual act of playing the game, and the monetization of the game. It seems for you is second to the utility and the significance to the players.
I mean, that would be ideal, right? It can obviously not neglect the fact that many people, especially the people who are willing to put in a lot of money, are expecting some kind of return. But then again, this is what I like about this kind of predictability, right? If we tell that we're handing out $25,000 per season, and that's it, and maybe it's going to be 30,000 at some point if the economy and the user base grows, maybe not, right? But that's very predictable for people. So if somebody makes the choice to invest, let's say, $50,000 into the game, from a rational perspective, should understand at this point that it's going to be very, very hard for them to ever recoup their $50,000 investment, right? At this rate of getting their share of the 25,000 for the next maybe 10 seasons. 10 seasons is already 60, 70 weeks, right? It's a year and a half. So it's difficult, right? So that's what I like about kind of being predictable, right? And this is also what you can see in kind of our player numbers, right? You can look at whatever DApp for instance. You see that okay, we don't have much more players on a daily basis than a year ago. So maybe we went up from 10,000 to 11,000 or 12,000, right? But hey, we didn't drop. right? So the entire space basically dropped, right? So and but we stayed constant. We stayed very, very stable in terms of the number of users, the number of players we have in the game, and I think that is because of the predictability. That is because of the stability of the economy, and that is because you know that what you're going to be getting, right, and that what you're getting yourself into, and we're trying not to make too many kind of too big promises, right? And anything that we do there, we actually try to do with the community, right? So I basically I'm on stream on Twitch every Monday and discuss these questions for 2 hours, sometimes give or take, sometimes even longer, for 2 hours with the community. And we have people. That's my afternoon, right? I'm based in Berlin, but we have a lot of people playing the game from the US, so they would actually tune in their early mornings and actually like talk to us about it and complain and voice their opinions. And this is like we're always trying to do that with the community, trying to do the right thing there, and try to find out whether people would like that or this, um, rather than like just having a super long roadmap that goes 3 years ahead, and you don't know whether you're going to deliver any of those, right? And we're trying to put out ideas, we're trying to digest ideas from the community and react to those and see where there's the biggest problem. So that's how we've been kind of dynamically developing this game without we can't say that we've had this huge roadmap. And to be honest, a ton of the things that we've had on the roadmap early on, we actually haven't realized yet. Although we wanted to realize them like fairly quickly, but then we ended up finding out that other things are much more important
Mhm.
to the players. So this is how games should be developed, I think, to a large extent. Um, Once they're out, right? Obviously, if you're kind of a serious game builder, then you probably have kind of an artsy type of idea about what your game's supposed to look like, and then you want to get that to perfection. But I guess that that's not the case typically in free to play anyway, right? Where you had an idea, you really had to try it, to try whether it works and so on. Uh, and I think in Web3 that's even more so, right? Because your gamers, your players are actually some type of shareholders, not really shareholders, but definitely a strong stakeholder in your game, right? If they own assets of the game, and
Mhm.
you will know if you're doing the wrong things, then the value of the assets will go to zero. You'll be able to tell from the market, right, whether or not you're doing the right thing. So I think that's a very, very healthy feedback loop if you choose to listen to it.
Yeah, before we talk about Dungeon World, I want to talk about something that's kind of, a big like podium or what do you call it, soapbox that I stand on a lot, which is about what you're talking about when it comes to, players being stakeholders. And what's always been a concern to me is like the botting of the games, and because then everything becomes hyperinflated, and then people who are running bots, they end up becoming the top players. And then so I feel like if you have a system that is heavily botted, you basically have someone who's able to create, 1,000 different wallets and 1,000 different automated systems that are clicking every 6 hours, or I should say every like 5 or 30 minutes. I think in Dungeon Master, the most efficient way to earn in Dungeon Master is like the shorter time, right? Like I think it's like every 5 minutes or something. If you click, that is the most efficient way to earn. And so a system like that always worries me, because then if there's someone who can set up 1,000 different computers and 1,000 different bots to basically click that 5 minute button, doesn't that get in the way of the person who wants to do the 8 hour run, because now their 8 hour is less efficient? So how do you guys deal with that?
It's a great question, and there is no clear answer to that, right? Um, we've I, I would say we have a ton of experience with botting, with exploitation, with mass account creation, also from the early Wombat days, right? I think it was maybe 7 or 8 days after the launch of Wombat where we had the first attacker basically mass creating Wombat accounts because you would get your EOS account for free. And back then, we would just give you like 1,000, maybe 800 bytes of RAM on EOS for free on top of your
Or
newly
you
created
just give it
account.
to the wallet holder, the person who made the wallet?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
we had a conversation about that today, and he was like, "Oh, well, what if we just give people some free CPU?" And I was like, "Oh, that's heavily exploitable." Like,
Well, CPU is different, right? Because you can't sell CPU, but with RAM, it's
oh, you can't.
horrible. Uh,
I'm pretty sure you can sell
um,
CPU. You can unstake CPU.
well, yeah, but CPU is a bit different because we also were giving people CPU, but we would stake it for them, so they couldn't unstake it, right? But
Right, but
you
you were
can
just
always
giving
stake.
RAM to the wallet, so somebody was like stealing all that RAM back.
Exactly, and people would basically just sell the RAM and walk off, right? So
Mm.
it basically took just a few days for people to find that out. It was not like we most of the time we basically have this a little bit naive approach to these things, right? Because we first want to see how they actually do it and what they do and what they're looking for before trying to optimize for this case where somebody might exploit that. That's not always the best strategy, but it's the strategy that we've been employing a lot of times because it's very, very hard to think about all the potential cases that might come up where people might somehow exploit the system, right? And even if you do, then it might take you a lot of time to actually build something, or you might end up not building it at all because you will not be, it will never be foolproof or fraud proof, right? So that's a general problem, and it's always an arms race, right? You do something against this kind of phenomenon, people will work around it. They will always do, right? So you can't go with. I mean, obviously that's what you do. You start with IP blocking, right? And you go with I don't know, captchas and whatnot, right? And it all doesn't work, right? It works to a certain extent, and you have to do it because otherwise you're making it too easy. But it's really like yeah, it's not enough, right? So there is no single good solution for this or no single answer. What we're currently working on in general is a verification system of sorts, right? And I think Sandbox are doing something similar. Upland, they at least have the SMS verification if you want to become an uplender, right? SMS verification, we tried that, doesn't work. Uh, um, I was much more hopeful towards SMS verification because I said nowadays it's so hard to get 50 numbers, right? No, it's not. It's not difficult. Yeah, we're working on a verification system for Wombat first, and then we'll roll that out to Dungeon Master as well. We will essentially have a tiered user system. So you'll have kind of free or the entry tier of users and their rewards will be limited very, very strictly, right? They will still be able to get some rewards, but they will compete with others in the same tier, and those rewards are going to be very limited. And yeah, then there's going to be the verified tier, or maybe multiple verification tiers, right? We're actually thinking about also a tiered system within the verification level, so you could like ideally you would go into some kind of a scoring system, right? And then you would say, okay, you did some kind of a KYC, or you bought crypto with your credit card, or and then you had to do KYC there, or you've played for 3,000 hours this game, whatever, right? So there's all kinds of factors that could go into that. I actually like the notion of using games as kind of a proof of work, right? So of a proof of liveness. So I like that notion. It's very, very easy to exploit, but only to a certain extent, right? Because then you can see all kinds of behavioral patterns and what bots would do. So yeah, that's basically our answer to that is a verification system because you won't get around it. As soon as you're offering a certain amount of value, you will have to make sure that the majority of the rewards goes to people who are at least you have a high confidence in them being a real person and just having one account.
Yeah, we've identified those challenges as well. That if you want to have a low barrier to entry and have anybody be able to come and play, there are trade-offs. If the rewards are good, well, then it's going to incentivize bots. Or if you incentivize people to play actively, well, then it's also incentivized towards bots. And how we dealt with this in our own free-to-play mode was that we essentially have a character and you can claim tokens from us. And you can claim tokens for free, so it's very low barrier, free to play. Just start up a character and start claiming. However, if you want to increase your power for the character, you do have to pay a small amount of wax. Essentially, we charge you for the cost to actually mint those assets. So whatever it costs to make an NFT on the blockchain, like point 0.1. We add a little more. It's like 0.12 for any kind of overages for that mint. And so when you mint these NFTs, you then get to use your power. Have you used the Castles free to play mode?
No,
Well,
no, I
basically,
haven't
so
tried
if
it.
you to continue to increase your power, you do have to pay a little bit of wax. And so what we do at the end of the season is we give people all these prizes, and we usually dictate it based on how much wax that you spent to upgrade your character during the season. And we find this has worked really well. It's been pretty well received. People are playing it, and we do get a lot of bots playing that version of the game, but they don't get anything close to the best rewards. They're basically, if you put a bot in there, you're making like a fraction of a cent or something for the whole season. And we think that that's pretty fair. If you're going to set up a bot, to click there, I mean, sure, maybe you should get a fraction of a cent for that bot for that season. But that's kind of how we've dealt with it. But there are limitations to it. It's not there's no perfect system for everything. But I do prefer these systems where we set up where if you are a human being and you own like $10,000 worth of assets, maybe only have to spend a couple of minutes a day in the game to actually play it, rather than incentivize people to be there actively clicking. That's been my personal preference. But what do you guys find? Do you really think that the incentives for actively playing, I guess this is kind of controversial question, but is that for like growth, or is that for for the players? Do you find that there are really players who want to be there every 5 minutes clicking?
It's not about the clicking, right? I think it's really about engaging with the game, and this is what you want, right? Um, and I think that in general, for a healthy economy, there should always be two parts involved, and you should be able to like in traditional free to play, right? You should be able to skip a few steps or shorten your time or whatever, or have less work if you're willing to spend money, but you should still have to put in the work. Part of the work is that you should find the right strategy of how you want to kind of spend your time and your like distribute your clicks over the day. Yeah, we will definitely have to revisit the entire balancing of the individual run durations because we didn't really expect this to become so dramatic in terms of kind of botting. Even real people who are honest, quote unquote, players, they're obviously not honest because they're using bots. Um, we suspect that they at least bot from every once in a while because it's just the rewards are so high potentially. But at least they're real people and they're spending a ton of time and also sometimes money in upgrading their characters and so on. So um, fair enough, right? It's just the problem is that the actual honest players they're getting much less. On top of that, we also introduced the stamina system, right? Where we said, okay, you can only do this many runs within a day of this specific type, right? And then your stamina is going to run out, and then you'll either have to wait or you'll be heavily penalized. So your runs will take 3 times as long if you want to keep running whatever, right? Whatever run duration. So this basically this helped to a certain extent, or this can help quite a lot if you balance it right, right? Where you can say, okay, every player based on the stamina system will have their very personal um, ideal sweet spot in terms of the combination of run durations over a day, right? And this is different for every player based on the equipment that they have, based on their binding power, based on their own preference in terms of how they want to spend their time, but mostly based on whatever boosts and power ups they have, right? Um, so that is not like really fakeable. Obviously, you can still program a bot to do exactly that, right? To do like, let's say 100 5-minute runs and 10 15-minute runs and then 1 8-hour run, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
but that helps a lot in terms of containing the worst cases where basically people just have a bot that would click every 5 minutes or every 3 minutes or whatever, and do these two clicks to make the next run. But overall, I think it's a combination of all the things, right? Because, um, yeah, just because people are paying for it doesn't mean that they're not multi-accounting, right? For sure not. I mean, if you look at, I don't know, Alien Worlds or Axie Infinity, right? And obviously in Axie Infinity, people didn't consider that a problem. You could obviously have multiple accounts with the same, or as being the same human, because you would have to spend $400 to actually get in. This is also not the way, right? Because then you're not adding a lot to the economy outside of your money. But really, games should also be about putting in the work and stuff, right? So um, work, right? It shouldn't. It sounds tedious, but that's what it is eventually, right? Games are always work, right? You just have an incentive. You always have an incentive to spend, and that's why it's fun to spend your time on it. Um, and I think that it's always going to be a combination. It's always going to be individual for every game how they handle this, right? And the problem for us now is, and I guess that it's the same for any game. If you've been there and have had the system for like a year, and people got used to that, then you can't be doing dramatic changes on any end anymore that are like really invasive. So we could, for instance, some people were saying, okay, let's just get rid of the 5-minute runs altogether, right? And we could do that, but there's a huge hardcore community, like not huge, but some of the hardcore players actually would not appreciate that, right?
Mhm.
So it's not as easy to basically change a system that you came up with that, yeah, you put out a little bit naively, like I said, right, and consciously naively, so that and then like yeah, change it all and do something totally different, right? But we're actually going step by step and kind of trying to improve on a kind of per season basis, where we say, okay, we're adjusting the parameters. We're also asking the community. Some of the questions that we ask to the community are basically binding, so we basically have token based votes on top of them. And but then again, you sometimes have the people having the most tokens would win the votes for themselves with things that benefit themselves rather than the whole economy, right? And this is what you do with token based governance, right? And it's very very interesting. It's all kind of a big apart from everything else, it's also a big social experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right that the best you can do when you have like a free to play game where there are real assets at stake that people can trade amongst themselves like commodities is the best you can do is contain it. You can come up with some kind of system where it's contained. And I can see where you can get into a position where, it's you have a player base that actually likes and uses what's currently existing and you don't want to change it because it works. I totally understand that. So tell me a bit more about Dungeon Worlds. I've looked at the white paper a bit. We're partners with you guys in Dungeon Worlds. You guys have a system where there are some early partners like ourselves that will be getting lands, and players will be able to play on our lands. And so I've read a little bit on the white paper. I wouldn't call myself an expert on it, but tell us like what is the why should people be excited about Dungeon Worlds?
I guess for the same reason why people are excited about Dungeon Master, because it's a simple to play but difficult to master game, right? It's all about kind of strategizing what's the best kind of combination of runs, what's the best gear for yourself, when should you change the gear, and these kinds of things. And now we're basically taking to the next level. And for us, it kind of feels like we're building a franchise system on top of this base principle that we have in Dungeon Master, right? And again, this came out of more like a necessity to change because it's all getting a little bit out of hand, right? And this is the management of all these NFTs and what the mining powers are and what kind of interest we might have in buffing or nerfing NFT mining powers, right? So right now we have about 42,000 different NFT templates stakeable on Wax and EOS, right? And imagine how hard it is to manage 42,000 different templates, right? Let alone that this is a UX nightmare, right? That we try and put out some list of all those 42,000, but then how do you make that browsable? And so right now it was a Google spreadsheet and it's still a Google spreadsheet. And that's not great. I'm not saying it's great, right? It's just that anything that would be a great experience would take a lot of time to build. And then the question is that the highest priority that we should have, right? With the limited team that we have. So yeah, I don't know. That you never know. But so what we said is, why don't we just give all of these choices that have to be made to, well, the community itself, right? So first of all, on one hand, there should be some people who want to choose, who should be able to choose which NFT collections and which templates are stakeable and for which mining power, because we don't want to be making these decisions. I have no interest in saying, okay, this collection or this template, this NFT of this collection should get 200 mining power, but this should only have 50. And these are the kinds of complaints that we're getting all the time, right? Why does this NFT that is like 5 wax on the market, why does this have 20 mining power, but this one that costs 10 wax has only 10 mining power? Mm-hmm. And I can give you an answer, because we can't be making these decisions based on market price, because which market price, right? Is there liquidity for it? Like how would you make these choices, right? Floor price, I have no idea, right? You can't be making these choices. Also, I can't make these choices based on I like this collection or I like this creator, right? I could, right? And I have the power because I'm owning this Excel sheet, this Google spreadsheet, right? But I don't want to. And to be honest, most of the collections, I don't own any single NFT of those, right? And obviously, let alone for all these templates, I don't own 42,000 NFTs, right? So I have no interest in bumping up this and lowering this for kind of personal reasons, right? Right. So I don't want to be making these choices because there's always going to be somebody who's not happy with it. And so we said, okay, let's just build kind of a more or less competitive system of dungeons that we don't control. We just give all of you the tools to control these dungeons. So you can make the choices of which collections are stakeable. These can be collections that we don't even allow in the kind of classic dungeon, right? You can just come up, and if you're a creator, for instance, and you're not stakeable right now in Dungeon Master, you can obviously make yourself stakeable, your own collection stakeable, and maybe that be the only collection that's stakeable within your dungeon. And that way you can generate engagement for your own collection by having this gamification, this gamified experience on top that is Dungeon Master, basically like a franchise Dungeon Master in that way, right? And then you can basically invite players to play in your dungeon rather than others, or maybe in your dungeon and others. And players will be able to choose the dungeons that they want to play in, right? They will be able to choose multiple dungeons, maybe not unlimited. Maybe there's going to be a limit. They will need an NFT to play in each dungeon, like a character NFT. But they will be able to play multiple dungeons, and probably many, right? And so we hope that we'll end up having hundreds of dungeons, and you'll be able to choose as a player, you'll be able to choose your 10, 20 dungeons that you want to play in. And it's still going to be this kind of simple, idle experience that we have in Dungeon Master, with all the strategizing, and the strategies will differ from one dungeon to another, right? So you might be a dungeon hopper, or you might actually want to play a dungeon for an extended number of seasons. We'll find out, right? But it's basically going to add this meta layer of having dozens or hundreds of dungeons on top of the same principle, and we'll basically hand all the curation power in terms of NFTs, but also in terms of which rules you want to apply to the community, and they'll be able to make up their own rules. And that was kind of the whole idea. And just in order to contain the number of dungeons, and so that we don't have tens of thousands of dungeons, we said, okay, there's an asymmetry between dungeon owners and players, so that dungeon owners need to have land in order to run a dungeon, right? And land is scarce. So there's just, on Wax, there's only going to be 10,000 lands, and you'll need at least a 3 by 3 patch of land, so nine land tiles in order to start a dungeon, to run a dungeon. So you already know from math that there's never going to be more than, like, even mathematically, not more than 1,000 something dungeons, right? And we hope and we think that it's going to be much less. So like a few hundred dungeons per blockchain, and then we'll go to other blockchains as well.
You said a few hundred dungeons per blockchain?
Yes,
Right, interesting. So it sounds like one of the layers of strategy here is if you're a gamer and let's say you love castles and you want to see, you want to basically bet on the value of your castle assets, you could buy a plot of Dungeon World land and then gear it towards castle assets and then add more value to those castle assets, being played within those dungeons. Is that kind of how the level of strategy works?
exactly. Like you as a dungeon owner can do that, right? And then, but then there's gonna be this, and there we're gonna go a bit bigger on rewards, simply because we want to have competition between these dungeons, right? And so we're saying, okay, because we won't have that much cash to hand out dollar equivalent, let's say $500,000 or $200,000 to all the dungeons. So instead, we're saying, okay, we'll be subsidizing all these dungeons with Wombat tokens, right? So we'll be handing out a ton of Wombat tokens to kind of the total number of the dungeons, but those dungeons will be in competition for those rewards, right? And this will depend, let's say, on the number of players on a daily basis. This will depend on which level their characters have. This might depend on which rarity their characters have, or how big the dungeon is, and so on, right? So there's going to be a multiple factors that determine how many of these rewards actually go into this dungeon, and this will make this dungeon more or less attractive to be played in, right, by players. But you will be able, as a dungeon owner, you'll be able to add your own rewards on top and make them even more interesting, right? So you might be we might want to hand out tokens or NFTs on top of that in the kind of the daily chests and stuff. Um, so yeah, there's going to be a lot of incentive to actually play in those dungeons, and the whole idea is that through these incentives, anyone who puts up, let's say, castles, NFTs, um, as a kind of a stakeable collection in their dungeon, they would actually contribute to having more utility for castles NFTs, right? And therefore also generating more engagement with castles NFTs, right? And that's kind of the main question that we get asked. Um, is like, okay, if I own a dungeon, can I just make any collection stakeable? And we say, yeah, basically, yes. There is going to be some filter for those, right? So we're not going to allow all the collections. We don't want any hate speech, no kind of the obvious things that you don't want on any platform, right? Also for legal reasons. But we will not apply very strong filters. So it's very likely that we'll tie into one of the verification systems of the NFT marketplaces, right? Maybe they'll have a joint one by that time, and we'll just use, I don't know, the whitelisting or verification systems of Atomic or Nifty or whatever, so that we don't run into kind of bigger problems there. But that's it, right? And then as a dungeon owner, you will be able to choose your collections. And yeah, maybe it's your own collection, and you'll benefit from that yourself. But I mean, in general, what we want is that NFTs get more utility across all collections, right? That we enable to add that utility by the creators, but also by fans of these collections, right? So if somebody is a fan of castles and they happen to own a dungeon, they will very likely add castles NFTs to be stakeable in their dungeon, because that will generate more engagement with those NFTs, right? And that in turn should be good for the economy. Whether that's going to be a strong effect or not, right? We don't know. That's totally going to depend on all kinds of balancing and whatnot, right? And how successful the game is in total. But that's the goal, that we generate some kind of additional utility.
Yeah, that seems really smart. I remember Victor Lopez, who is the CEO of Apex NFT, and they make our smart contracts and websites. They're amazing. If anybody needs a game made, they need to go talk to them. But he was telling me that after you guys showed it to him, he was like, "This is a really smart system." He's like, these guys are really smart. And yeah, after talking to her, can see how there are these, interesting layers of how, uh, what you're calling basically meta, but it really is kind of like the whole point of the whole metaverse, I think, when we have these games that all exist on a blockchain and they can be interoperable. They can do things that you might not even be able to imagine when you first create it. And being able to have assets from Castle's collection be valuable inside of the Wombat game, which it already is because you guys have assets I think that can already be staked from Castles, but on top of that is this layer where the players can actually interact with that value and they can start to dictate the value of, does a baron in the castles game have the maximum amount of value inside of the dungeon that they built when you stake it. I think that's really fascinating to be able to give that level of control over an entire ecosystem that already pre-exists, like the wax ecosystem of games. Yeah, that seems really intelligent. Like, I can't wait to see it in action.
It's going to be really interesting once it's actually live, where we can go from there, right? So what I really like, for instance, in Alien Worlds, how they now created the planet DAOs, right? And so we have something like that in mind for dungeons potentially, right? So already what we're going to be doing is, if a dungeon gets rewards at the end of the season, then first the dungeon owner can set a tax, so they will keep some of that reward for themselves, right? And that can be zero, but it can be up to thinking about 15% that they can set. So obviously, setting a high tax will make the dungeon less attractive for players, but it's going to make it more attractive to the dungeon owners, so they can actually get a return on their investment into the land, right? But at the same time, we'll also set aside a tiny little portion. Right now, we're thinking 1% of the total rewards in Wombat tokens for, like, basically indefinitely for now, for kind of future use, for maybe some kind of a DAO system for the dungeons, where each dungeon might end up having their own token, and then we'll use this DAO reserve that we put out, as for liquidity for these tokens, right? So you'll be able to trade those tokens without having to put up liquidity yourself, right? And then these tokens will have some value initially already, right? And then you'll, as a DAO, as a dungeon owner, you'll be able to hand out these DAO tokens to your players, maybe based on their performance over the seasons, or maybe just like that, or do an airdrop or whatever, right? And then these people will have governance over the dungeon by the tokens and be able to adjust the rules and maybe vote for changes in the balancing, vote for uh, new collections in, and so on, right? So each of the dungeons will actually become its own version of dungeon master with its own governance and stuff, right? So this is what we're looking forward to. And also, what we're thinking about is different game modes, right? Right now, we really have this super simple idle game mode, but it doesn't mean that this is all you can do, right? You could obviously have other game modes. We could have, I don't know, some kind of a jump and run mode in the game, right? That's more skill based. Or we could have kind of a PvP mode in the games. I don't know, maybe you would have to play a match 3 game against one another, right? Or whatever, right? There's basically limitless opportunities there, simply because how we're viewing Dungeon Worlds is a very modular system, right? So we have dungeons, and we have game modes, and we have stakeable NFTs, and we have rules, and then we have things that are not dungeons, right? So we have the player view, we have characters, and you can do other things with your characters. That's also modular, right? You can train the characters and you can breed them, and that's all kinds of, like, all different kinds of modules. So we can basically adjust and extend each module, right? And we can give more power to the people. And this is what I'm really excited about. Having started with a super simple model, and having grown that to an extent where it's obviously getting harder to adjust things, simply because people got used to that, or from a technical perspective, it's gotten harder, right? And now we're kind of restarting everything with Dungeon Worlds, and we have the opportunity to basically give out all kinds of balancing issues to these individual dungeons that we don't have to take care of anymore. And then we'll just see where this goes, right? And we will lose a lot of control, And that's good. That's a great thing. This is where we should be going with Web3 gaming in general.
I find this fascinating that you have this vision around scaling the metaverse product that you're building. Um, yeah, I'm just even now like trying to wrap my head around this, the scalability. Like it sounds like what you're building to have it scale very well as time goes on. There are more collections, there are more players, and the dungeon worlds can expand, and the people who then own the dungeons, uh, it sounds like you in the long term want to be able to have them basically have their own game universes that, or their game dungeons. I mean, we're calling them dungeons now, right? But let's just kind of expand it more like universes that you're allowing them to create and even possibly like productize on their own.
Theoretically, yes, but really, and that's why we're not calling this, let's say, an idle metaverse or whatever, right? I think the term metaverse should be reserved for kind of things that have a higher grade of immersion, because this is what, like, to me, this is the notion of a metaverse, right? That it's more immersive than what we have in something like Dungeon World. Maybe eventually we'll get there, or we'll want to get there.
But you
But
have the Mark Zuckerberg definition of the metaverse then, which I think is the rarest version of the metaverse definition, where he's like, I think Mark Zuckerberg's definition of the metaverse is like presence, like being present in like a virtual world. But you're saying that your definition of the metaverse is something that is more immersive.
I'm not saying it's presence, and I'm not buying into this. Everything needs to be in 3D necessarily, right? But to me, it's really like, how much does this feel like a different world? And that's not necessarily what I have in mind for Dungeon Worlds, even if it's called Worlds, right? Um, but to me, this is supposed to be a game, right? And a game is not necessarily like a metaverse is not necessarily a game, and not each game needs to be a metaverse, because what I don't like about a metaverse, because to me that's like somehow always has gotten to do with, okay, I first have to go to this metaverse experience before I can find the experience that I actually want to use, right? Let's imagine you want to go to an online casino in your metaverse. You first have to like open boot the metaverse and before you find the casino that you want to use. Most people who want to go to an online casino just want to go to the casino, right? They don't want to boot the metaverse experience before they can go to the casino. So that's what I kind of don't like about talking about metaverse in all kinds of contexts. And that's also why we're not talking about a metaverse. We're talking about a game, and it's kind of a franchise game, right? Or let's put it that way, or whatever, right? Or you have different worlds that you can dive into. But to us, it's still a game, right? And it's not kind of a big metaverse. And to me, that's a lot of marketing when people talk about this, because you want to, like, everyone wants to call them their stuff metaverse because it's like nice and it sells well. But I like, for the next few years, what we build with Dungeon Worlds, I don't think this is going to be a metaverse, or I wouldn't want to call it a metaverse. Maybe eventually it will, right? But I also don't. I also think that what should, like, the whole goal, if you compare us to like the average metaverse experience, where you would have this kind of people can build their own game or their own experience, is really that setting up a dungeon should not take more, and its base version shouldn't take more than 15 minutes, right? Obviously, if you go to the sandbox and you use their game creator and stuff, and you want to build kind of a basic version of an experience within the sandbox, this is going to take you more than 15 minutes. It's probably going to take you more than 15 hours, or maybe more than 15 days. You may actually want to hire an entire team to build your brand's experience in the sandbox or the Centraland or any other metaverse, right? And we don't want to be that. We want it to be very, very easy for any brand, for any creator, for any dungeon owner, dungeon master, to be able to set up their dungeon if they want that within 10, 15 minutes, like in a base level. And then obviously, yes, they should be able to come up with fancier rules, other customization and whatnot, right? And they should also be able to spend 10 hours in setting this up, but it should not require skills, and it should be very, very simple in the base level. So this is also what kind of distinguishes what we have in mind, at least right now, from kind of the typical metaverse, in terms of what does an experience look like? Because the experience is still going to be the same. You're still going to have to stake NFTs and do your runs, right? At least, right, like I said, in the beginning. So that's why, to me, it's like it would be the most boring version of a metaverse if we call it a metaverse.
It doesn't sound to me like it'd be the most boring version of a metaverse, because I don't think we have we don't have any other word to call what you're doing. You know, we could call it like the thing that cannot be named, but that's not as interesting as metaverse. And
It's up to you.
my definition is that as soon as like you create something on the blockchain, like an NFT or a token, that asset is now in the metaverse. Why? Because it can be modified and used by someone who owns it, who is not you, the creator. Once you kind of put it out there, and it can be used by so many people and used interoperable. I consider that now in the metaverse. But Disney has had metaverses for years. As soon as they put Donald Duck in a Disney cartoon, in a Mickey Mouse cartoon, that was a metaverse. We just didn't call it a metaverse, but it was. They were, crossing the universes. But yeah, for lack of a better word, for this kind of stuff that you guys do, I call it metaverse stuff because this
That's
is not a
fine.
better term, unless you got one for me.
Then you're probably going to be better at advertising this for us than we are.
You bet. That's what I'm here for. So, yeah, I'm super excited to hear it, and I can't wait to see this thing come out in action. I think you guys said it's probably going to be a few more months until it's out.
So the plan is to launch it in summer. We'll be launching certain parts of it, like the mining and the training and the breeding. The plan is to launch those well ahead of the actual game, um, and then we'll launch the entire thing. You never know, right? With games, it's hard to have these estimates and to keep them. We also still have the work on Dungeon Master. There's still 1,000 things that we would like to put a Dungeon Master before Dungeon Worlds, actually, right? And obviously, we still have a ton of people playing that without actually like really knowing or understanding where Dungeon Worlds is going to go, right? So yeah, we'll see. I really hope that we can get this out in summer.
Yeah, I have just a few more questions, because I'm curious how you. Uh, I think it seems like you have a skill set that is really uncommon, particularly inside of like understanding games and crypto. And you said that you had worked at a financial company for many years.
Stock exchange operator, the largest in Germany.
Yeah, so where did you get this ability to build a company like this? Because it seems like you have a skill set where you're able to identify how these different things could fit together. It's a very unusual skill set. You don't see it there. There are many people who've tried to do what you're doing, and most of them have done it very poorly. You're like, we built a game and that was it. But you seem to have had this foresight to create a wallet and then a game and then have these synergies with the mobile platforms, and now you're building this metaverse dungeon world. And how did you get these skill sets? Like, did you have like a mentor? Did you take all these classes? Like, where'd you get that from?
Thanks for saying something like that. It doesn't feel like it's very special to me, but obviously I've been there, so it's harder to look at this from the inside out. Well, I think a lot of that started when I started studying mathematics, and it's funny because if you study mathematics, what you learn is a lot of lateral thinking, right? You basically train it, and that's the major skill that you kind of get from studying mathematics. It's not knowing how to do whatever, right? Because our math degree was also very modular, and we could choose a lot, right? And I did a lot of applied math, so that's not really what you get, right? So you forget most of it, and you never use it anyway because it's very theoretically. Um, but what you really get is you train lateral thinking a lot, right? Because you have to, and also first principles, right? You have to basically go down to the very, very basics, to some definitions, and then deduct from these definitions what you might get out of it. And it's crazy how far you can get with just a little set of simple definitions. So this is basically like an artificial version of first principles. And I guess that I mostly throughout my career, if you want to say, I cultivated that by applying this to a lot of things and kind of yeah. When I worked at Deutsche Börse, we were basically building market models from the ground up, right? So we had to think about certain commodity markets that didn't exist before, right? So we worked on a day ahead electricity market, which didn't exist before. So we had to think about how that actually works. We did the real time trading for intraday electricity. So we had to think about that. We did gas markets, we did carbon emissions, and we had to come up with systems of how this can be traded in a fair and efficient way that's compliant with regulators, obviously, because it's highly regulated, um, and come up with that. So I kind of kept training this type of okay, let's connect all the dots and let's see like where are we coming from. So this is also how what I try to do apply in business. I'm trying to think, okay, what is going to be the goal, right? Where do we want to go? We want every gamer to be able to play Web3 games. So how do we get there, right? And so this is what I'm trying to use as kind of a major guideline to making decisions. And this is also one thing that I probably mostly learned from playing a lot of poker, and I really played a lot of online poker. If I didn't play games, I played online poker during my during my studies. Um, is kind of trying to make the tough decisions early on, right? Because then all of your subsequent decisions uh, get easier, right? So it's like in poker, when you're a beginner and you know you're not very good at making decisions post flop, right? You're supposed to play tight aggressive. So either you're not going in, or if you're going in, you're trying to get as much information as you can and bet in, right? Not just like search your luck, but basically bet in and try to find to get information about your opponent, right? So either you so when you're playing tight, you obviously you're just making or you're just playing hands that make it easier for you to make decisions later on, right? Because you know that you're not good at decision making. So I guess that's also something that I'm trying to apply. That you make your decisions, the big decisions, early on, and then everything else is like kind of falling into place much better because yeah, you made a hard decision early on, and then you kind of know, right? A lot of the direction, or the general direction, is kind of preset.
It's interesting, like making a multi-chain wallet on the surface looks kind of hard because you're then competing. Someone, an investor might say, "Oh, but now you're competing against MetaMask or something else like that," and that might seem kind of difficult. But once you made that choice, well, then you could just look at all the different things you would need to make that be successful. And it seems like you guys went into a niche for Web2 gaming, basically, to kind of make that your beachhead.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, not all of that has been initial strategy, right? So we knew that at some point we will have to be appealing for Web2 gamers, right? But we didn't necessarily think that we would want to do that in 2020, as early as 2020. It's actually, it was too early, right? But that came out of the necessity that we had a ton of users who wanted something to do, essentially, right? And we didn't have anything. We couldn't show them all the great Web3 games. There weren't any, or hardly any. So yeah, some things like if I were to choose just like this, if I had like an infinite amount of money and a huge team and whatnot, then I probably would have waited and then done it a little bit later. But we never you never have unlimited resources, right? So you're trying to do the best that you can with the resource that you have and see how far this gets you. And sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. And we were unlucky for for a long time, like basically coming up with ideas too early, right? And but this gets you to a place where you can benefit from it.
Yeah, I think you guys are in a great position right now. It was maybe about a year ago. There were other collections that were the bigger collections. We're like, look at these guys, and now we're like, no, look at one. Wombat Dungeon Master. They're doing great. So I've actually done more research into your guys' company to see what's made you guys successful. And the more that I learn, the more, if I were a player or a user, I would definitely stay on top of what you guys are doing because you seem to be doing things very intelligently. And like I said, basing things on a first principle is really not something that many people can do, especially in some of these larger companies. Some of these larger companies, they have like a lot of money at their disposal, but they don't have what you have, which is basically the ability to assess the situation you're actually in and the product that you're actually building and the market that you're building it for, and in an intelligent manner that works. Whereas some of them, they're just like, oh, there's got to be a lot of money here, right? Let's build something. Let's just throw cash at it. I am sure a lot of these companies right now that are building that didn't have the experience that you had and haven't been building the way that you've had to build aren't just going to be successful because they're going to spend too much too fast and not actually build something that people want. But you being a gamer and someone who's interested in crypto, it seems like you're really well positioned to be a person to make the Wombat product one of the big products inside of this new space that we're building in Web3, the metaverse, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, let's see. I hope so. We hope so, right? Obviously, this way of dealing with things and kind of readjusting and stuff that doesn't sit very well with the typical VC investor, right? Because that they basically have a hypothesis. They're betting like on 10, 20, 100 different horses, and they're saying, yeah, based on this hypothesis, we'll try, and if they fail, they fail. It doesn't matter. Or like it doesn't matter much. It obviously does matter, but they just need 10 of their horses or 10% or 15% of their horses to be successful at a 20x, 100x, whatever return, and then they're good, right? So basically, they would much rather. I've had multiple really great VCs telling me, look, if you just stop doing what you're doing and just start a new company from scratch doing the same thing or a similar thing, this is how much money we would give you. This is awesome, right? But with all the legacy that you've had and all the adjustments, we're not sure, right? And this is totally weird, right? They're not betting on all the learnings that you've made, but they would much rather that actually went into your existing product, right? But it's that they would rather just pick your brain and so like fund you to do this a similar thing again. And this is something that I've been seeing across the VC space a lot, not all of the time, but a lot. And this is not necessarily how I like to do business, because that would also mean that I would have to abandon my current community and my current users, right? And I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to just make a bet on, okay, maybe this product will last for the next 10 years, but maybe it's also going to be over within 6 months because I might not get funding for the next round, or it might not actually be the thing that everyone that makes you successful. And just looking at the past, right? From a pure VC perspective, starting with something like a Steam for Web3 or kind of a gaming platform like what we did. And in 2018, this was crazy. Nobody would fund that back in 2018, right? And why would they? Because it was way too early, right? Um, and like same with this idea of getting Web2 gamers into Web3. They would say, oh no, the market is the market. The market will evolve by itself, and gamers will eventually learn how to use Web3, and you don't have to educate them on that. This is way too hard. Like this task is way too hard. So we don't want you to spend your time and money on this. So this is stuff that you would hear, right? But somebody has to do it, right? Somebody has to come up with these funnels and these ideas and make it work for people. And we did that. We've successfully onboarded over 3.2 million users into our ecosystem. We made over 1 million of those crypto holders. We made almost 1 million of those NFT holders, right? So it's crazy how many people have had even first-time experience with NFTs or crypto through us and are now happy Web3 users, right? And I think this is really what drives me much more than kind of a VC saying, okay, oh great, or getting the next funding round or whatever. And this is also why I think that the token model is really great because you can basically communify things to a large extent, right? And yeah, it also gives you much different options in terms of, well, funding, but also how you basically steer things going forward.
I think one of the words you kept saying to me when we first started a conversation was the word ambiguous, and it really is feels like that's the industry we're in. You know, we're building something new with this nascent technology. There's going to be different investors and different people, different points of view, but in the end, you know, it's really up to us to have the vision for what the product is that we're creating and how it provides value to people. And they're going to be investors who get it, people who get it and people who don't. You know, I do too much reading of other news websites for video games and stuff. And uh, a lot of the feedback from like bloggers when it comes to gaming NFTs, especially like starting a year ago, was just like heavily negative. Like vitrolic is a word that comes to mind, which is basically like, you know, very bad. You know, like they're just like NFTs are evil, they are bad, we never want to use them for video games. And this is what I have seen from a lot of bloggers. And a lot of them just don't understand the concept, you know, the concept of like owning an asset because it's never been done before. And I think, you know, anything that is new is going to be resisted by people because the way most people operate is that if this is new, I'm going to resist it. I want to go back to something I understand, you know, something that I have seen
Yeah.
before. But that's not the business we're in. We're in the business of creating new value propositions to the point where people can't ignore them anymore. And that's what I love about this space. You know, what you're creating is very much in that avenue of, you know, you're identifying places where there's value to be created, where the people want it. And I feel like the way you've been designing it is almost like you know, a no-brainer once you kind of understand what it is you're building. And of course it's going to provide value to people. Of course people are going to want to earn a portion of $25,000 a month. Of course they're going to want to be able to you know, click these buttons and be super efficient and earn these tokens. Of course, they're going to want to build these characters. And then, of course, they're going to want to facilitate their self-interest in what collections are successful. To me, like these are really great questions that you're answering. And I really love what you shared about how you got into this by basically building up products from the ground up where there was no existing marketplace or product before. You had to look at, you know, how to create this out of nothing and make it exist within all these other systems that already exist, you know, for providing value. So it's kind of no wonder that you got into this, it seems.
Yeah, let's. I can only say that we do what we can, and we hope for the best, right? And because you never know, there's always, like in business, there's always a lot of luck involved, right? To be at the in the right place at the right time. We were getting it wrong. This could have destroyed us. It didn't, right? It's a lot about kind of having the or being like tenacious, being right, like getting through the hardship as well. And running a business, you know it, right? Running a business is hard. It's hard on a daily basis. When times are good, it's hard because it's yeah, you have to have all these growing pains and stuff, right? You always have either too little money or too few people, right? It's always like that in business. You never have both, right? Um, so yeah, it's always crazy. So you can only hope that you also have this yeah, extra little bit of luck so that you actually make it through and you build something that is really meaningful for as many people as possible, and it can be just 10, right? And if that makes your business sustainable, then that's great. But the space that we're in with gaming, right? The potential is there to actually touch millions, tens of millions, or maybe hundreds of millions of people, and change their. It's obviously a bit maybe too much said to change their lives, but at least to change the way they play games, right? And I think that's really exciting about the space, and because yeah, having grown up in the 90s, I saw premium games pretty much only, right? You would always get a box and with floppy disks and a handbook, right? And then we got to CDs and still boxed games, and then suddenly there was online and downloadables, and then we had DLRs, and then we suddenly had free-to-play games where everything was a DLCs. That's what I call it. So we had this evolution, and like we've been through all of that with digital gaming, right? And now we're at the step of the next evolution. I love it. I love being part of that because I've never been part of that, right, professionally, and now I am. And this is really what's fun about it, that you get to combine. I like sometimes when my kids are wondering why you're playing this game, I'm like, I'm just working. Leave me alone. I'm playing this game because I need to know, I need to understand how they've done this, what they're doing there, right? And I really want to find out. And that I play a ton of games simply for professional reasons, right? And it's still fun. And I love that aspect as well, that you get to play a lot of games, and you get to learn a lot of new concepts, and pushing the boundaries. And everyone does that in their own pace, in their own direction, right? And nobody knows what's going to be successful, but some of it definitely will, like long term and big time. It's going to be like really, really successful and really cool, and a lot of people will love it. So yeah, you're right. People have to understand it. It's hard to understand. That's why we had this notion of basically just giving NFTs to everyone. Like, yeah, we have to pay for it, right? We have to pay for the minting costs. We have to pay for the account creations and so on. But that's not the point. The point is that it should be easy, and people should actually get to experience NFTs in the context of gaming as simply as possible, and then they will understand. And that's so funny, because this exact complaint, right, that bloggers would have, and that like all the shitstorm that I don't know, Ubisoft got for introducing NFTs on top of Ghost Recon, right, and this stuff. We never had that. None of our users ever complained, "Oh, I got this NFT, blah." Right? What, NFTs are evil, whatever. Nobody ever said that. Not a single person. I've never heard. Maybe they did, but I never heard anyone saying it or read anyone saying it from our community. Everyone was genuinely happy about having this NFT. Right? Some people were tweeting about it, saying, "Oh, that's the first NFT. I'm 52. That's the first NFT I've earned. I have no idea what I can do with it, but I love it." Right, for whatever reason, and that's great, right? And this is like, yeah, we just need to scale that to like 100x or 1000x, right? And then we're gonna be there. And yeah, that's what we're trying.
Yeah, I do think mass adoption is coming. We just had a big event over here in America for the Super Bowl, and Digidaiku raised, I think, like over $100 million for like their free NFT project, and I guess they spent like 7 million of that on a Super Bowl commercial with like a scan code. But they raised $100 million or more based on the idea of just giving NFTs away for free, which I think is genius. I think it's, if you just give people free NFTs and just allow them to trade them, I think that's a genius idea. But I think it shows that the traction for this stuff is here. If you just give people access to actually use their game assets as commodities, the mass adoption then will come.
Definitely. The only difficult part about doing this in gaming really is it takes so much time to build a great game, right? So this adoption curve would have been so much faster if building an awesome game wouldn't take 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. I don't know, right? On a like AA, AAA grade, right? And that's what's so cool about PFPs and these kinds of NFT projects, right? Is that it's so easy to make them. You can basically be there within a few days. Oh my, sorry, my key light went off. Um, um, so it's so easy to make a PFP collection of NFTs or whatever it is, right? And that's what made them so successful, that you could have one come up and basically iterate over like how you do things within no time, right? Within weeks, essentially. And that's what's great, right? But that's not what's possible in that short period in gaming. So that's also why with Dungeon Master and with Dungeon Worlds, we want to go this evolution, right? We wanted to start with something really simple that is supposed to be out, right? That is supposed to be live and playable, and then iterate from there, because we simply can't make a game for 2 years, then or for 3 years, bring that out and learn from it, and then start work on the next game. This is going to take ages, right? So we really need to learn faster if we want to be in that position that we actually want to be in.
I get it. You know that one day in like 10 years you'll be able to make a game the same way that you do like a AI art. You'll just be like, give me a game like Zelda, with an open world and there's like 10 quests in every village, and there's only like four main powers, and then like you tell the AI that and suddenly you'll just have this massive open world that it generated. We're going to get there like in the next 10 years. I think it's going to be crazy.
Maybe even faster, specifically with things like Roblox or whatever, the sandbox game maker or whatever, like these kind of real game makers that build on top of basic primitives that are all the same, right? And you don't have to worry about certain things or other engines, right? Just like ChatGPT can already write WordPress plugins, you might actually go and say, okay, give me a Unity game, whatever, right? And might actually be much faster. But yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, there's always going to be fine tuning and whatever to be done, and like all the economies and all the creatives that you would probably want to have a certain way. But these games will be playable games, totally playable, and there's going to be an abundance of all types of different games, and maybe you will just play the game that you just invented, right? So it's going to be like generated live for you, and you'll ask for that type of game. But I think it will still use, or you will still want to use assets in your game. And that's why I think that this kind of persistence that we have in blockchain assets, that's going to be huge value, whatever kinds of games we'll be playing 10 years from now.
Yeah, well, let's chat some more and let me know, if you ever need any feedback on anything that you guys are doing, because I don't know, maybe it can be a value somehow there. Be like, hey, Robert, can somebody bought this part of the game? And I'd be like, I think maybe no, maybe yes. Well, I'd give you a
The
straight
answer will
answer.
always be yes.
Well, yeah, like I said, you can probably contain it, but there are always things I
Yeah.
think we can do. But I'm interested to see what you guys are coming from next. So let us know if we can provide value for you guys in any way, and we really appreciate your partnership with Castles as well. You guys providing us some space on your wallet page on the Wombat wallet. We really appreciate that, and the systems that you guys have been integrating to interact with the Wombat ecosystem.
Yeah, great pleasure. We are on this together, right? We all want the same things. We all want to push that space forward. The wax space is this little island, very very cutting edge, very like looking forward, but it's still like tiny, right? The whole community is small. The obviously the the total value of wax based assets is low compared to other ecosystems. So there's still a lot of growth potential, obviously, and also across other communities and ecosystems, obviously. So yeah, we're super happy about all the partners that we have, including Castles and you. So be happy to chat more and to kind of keep the discussions up, because this is really we can do so much more together, and we're not like, I've been saying that quite a lot. We don't want to be building everything ourselves, right? We want to utilize whatever we can from other people's experiences, because it's already so hard to build the stuff that we're building. We don't want to be building kind of, that's why I also don't like this notion of just being a wallet, because if I'm a wallet, my core principle, or my core discipline is to um, build great, secure, let's say, I don't know, multi-party computing, key backup stuff, right? And this is going to be my competitive edge if I have a better key backup solution. But I don't want to be building better key backup solutions. From a technical, mathematical perspective, that's super interesting. Secure multi-party computing, super awesome, right? I love it. But that's not how I want to be spending my time in this context of gaming. I don't want to be thinking about, okay, how am I better than this, or how to integrate this chain faster, or whatever. This is not at all what we want to be spending our time on right now, because there are so many other priorities that we have, so many things on our roadmaps, and so many ideas coming in from the community, from partners. And so there's no time to think about, okay, how do we improve our wallet part to be the best possible non-custodial wallet, and we can compete with whatever MetaMask or Trust Wallet or whatever. That's not the point, right? So yeah, there's a lot we can do together.
Awesome, awesome. So if people want to reach out to you or participate in Wombat Dungeon Master, why don't you give us like your website they can go to, or I guess they can download the app. Just search for Wombat inside of the App Store, right? Either Android or Apple. And the Wombat website is what?
App, Wombat.app.
Wombat.app. And what about you? If they want to reach out to you, should they go to the Discord? Should they use a Telegram? Should they go to Twitter? Should they not reach out to you? What should they do?
Twitter is probably always the easiest because Twitter DMs are easy to separate from everything else. On Telegram, it's always very noisy, or on Discord also, right? So you can find me on Twitter. It's just at Adrian Krion. Very easy to find. I'm the only person with that name, so it's you'll find me. Or just go through one of our channels. You can always ask if you're on our Discord or on our Telegram. You can always ask to get connected with me. It's just that yeah, obviously for me personally it's typically too messy.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Adrian, for your time and for your insights into Web3 gaming and for building an awesome platform very early here in Wax. And I think there's a lot of room for us to grow here. And I really appreciate you talking with me today.
Thanks a lot for taking the time and for having me on. Thanks a lot, Robert.